We are going to start looking at a master pattern for a men's jacket, a suit jacket. It's not the tailored bespoke method. This would be used for manufacturing for garments that are brought off the rail in the store, and that's including high end and high street as well. Although everything from this is borrowed heavily from traditional tailoring, but there isn't the expense of it being an individually cut garment for a person who's been measured and fitted. We are going to put things like fusing and lining onto this pattern, onto this master pattern. Where we are working in scale, we will be doing some separate things for vents, because there's normally a cuff vent here. Sometimes there is a centre back vent, sometimes there are side vents that are here. And then on the front we have a pocket, normally a jet pocket, sometimes a patch pocket here, commonly with a flap. And we have the breast pocket or pocket ticket, whatever you want to call it. But we won't put pockets, and we also won't be putting the canvas pattern onto here. We normally would, but we just have to be aware that we're working on such a small scale that it's going to get a bit crammed. So for the front piece alone, we are going to use the half scale. If you have big enough paper and you're able to print the whole half scale one, then do use that instead. I have to be conscious of what can fit on the screen, so I'm keeping it like that. So that is the front copied on in half scale. When we look at the front piece, we have the grain line, but we also have the centre front. And the centre front is about 2.5 centimetres in on the block. And that's already the button wrap, the button stand. If we were to extend it further, we would start to turn it into a double-breasted jacket. We also have the dart here for fitting, and we have this wedge here which is open. When this dart is sewn, it closes the wedge and it brings the side seams to match. These bits aren't overlapped, they are positioned so that they touch, so that they kiss. And on the back, where your shreddies are, you would place some fusing to secure them before you sew on your jet. Notches are really important on all patterns, but particularly important in something like a coat or a jacket like this, because there's a lot of easing and pressing of seams into place. And a good example of that is where the shoulder joins. We can see that there's a difference in these seams, and actually if I place that notch here and this notch here, you can see they don't match. Now that is not a mistake. What we are doing is when we are sewing, we are easing these seams together. We are basically pulling this front one so those two notches match to give us a nicer look, a nicer fit on there. And then there are quite a lot of notches on here, and these are important for fitting the collar and setting in the sleeve correctly. You will also commonly find on two-piece sleeves that the space between these notches is not the same. Again, there's about 2 centimetres difference, normally with the undersleeve being shorter, and that is sewn so that it's eased on. We will also find that the sleeve head is larger than the armhole, and there may sometimes be difference between side seams as well, again for fitting and stuff. So they're super important. What I've taken is the front and I've placed it on this pattern. I've left 4 centimetres in the bottom here, and I've drawn a guideline all the way along, and then I have squared up. What we're aiming for is everything to be square 90 degrees to the grain lines. What you might find with some of these blocks is that actually the hem, so this is the hem of the back, isn't square, so we would correct that. It's not that there's a fault with the block, it's what we're going to do to this pattern, and that involves lowering the pattern to add a facing on. The facing will be cut and it will fold back up, so that's why we need 90 degrees. The second yellow line runs on the chest line or the underarm line, and it travels all the way through, and so it should match. I've even done that with the back sleeve. Less important with the back sleeve, but I think it is really good that if we want to change the armhole, we can see that across the whole pattern and make those differences. Now, the gaps between these pieces, this is approximately 2 centimetres, this is 2 to 3, that could be about 2, this is roughly around 6. As long as the pieces aren't really near to each other, then you'll be fine. But what we do here normally is we bring a pocket bag out here, and if we're adding on vents, we need space for that. So it's kind of really, really critical that we keep everything sharp and within these 2 parallel lines. It's just good practice anyway. It's better than having things floating around across the pattern. So just bringing that across again, we've got the undersleeve, top sleeve, the back, the side. Do remember that half of the side, so this side over, was originally part of the back, and vice versa. This side used to be part of the front. So this block that we've got here is known as a secondary block, or a stylized block, because it has been turned into a semi-recognisable garment or a recognisable garment in this case. If we sew this together, it will look like a jacket that we all recognise. So this is a secondary block that we're using. There are, within drafting books, ways to turn the basic block, the basic torso block, into a tailored block, or you can draft straight from a book a jacket block itself. If you're drafting your own block, it's probably because you're drafting it to fit somebody specific and you're putting in their own kind of measurements, or you're going for a non-conventional style. There are lots of different jacket styles. One that's a real variation on this is something known as a Norfolk jacket, which has lots of panelling and a waistband in.